Good afternoon. How are you? Well, we've got an average cold day, I guess. It's 30 degrees, although the emergency warning, so there's a lot more coming. And Thomas Jefferson, if you were with us today, would probably pass that on. The humidity's 30 as well, and the wind's at 8 miles an hour, and it's not affecting us here. Then we may have 6 inches, which seems like a lot to some Virginians, but even in New York we were used to pretty serious snowstorms. But we've had serious snowstorms as we've in recent years, up to the hips snow on the ground, and takes a while to dig out. So we expect there'll be some of that. So maybe a sludging talk rather than a walk and talk. There are a couple of things that are disconcerting, in the sense of it's jarring, it's disappointing, and you expect better. The Times had a lead story above the fold on the right side saying, and the question was, how Trump flipped script and made January 6th an asset. How could that have happened? Could it have been the New York Times coverage of this asshole? Could it have been that they didn't question it? Did it pass their minds not to mention all the alternative means by which one could go after Trump, including the sorry performance by the Republicans at the impeachment proceedings after January the 6th? Is it possible that on January the 6th, which if I remember from my early teaching by nuns, is the feast day, I think, of the Epiphany. But apparently the New York Times hasn't had an epiphany. They don't have an understanding of this, and they perhaps choose not to have an understanding of this. And they printed as well how Trump successfully raised the question of left-wing plants. So who was out there discouraging that this was truthful? Who was out there saying that this was not truthful? Insurrectionists took over the Capitol, and we are wrestling with how Trump did it. Like he's the anti-hero, except often anti-heroes are people that don't get along with the system, breach some rule that compromises the common man, woman, or people, and then does some good. This is the well, he's not a hero at all. He's just plain evil. And that people could write about him in this way makes you think you've fallen through an Alice in Wonderland door, and we're going to be eating mushrooms on either side to determine who's bigger or smaller in terms of truth. The New York Times gets a 4.5 on this score. In the same issue that no, it's not true. In the weekend issue, in which they run a story about how the Washington Post wouldn't run a cartoon showing the fealty of Bezos and other high-tech people, showing their fealty to Trump. And she did a cartoon of that, and I'll attach it if you haven't seen it. And the cartoon has them paying fealty. But Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, he's not going to have that there. But the Times feels comfortable talking about that, and then runs this story about how Trump flipped script and made January 6th an asset. So they're saying insurrection pays. If you lose an election, well, the hell, just go in and say they stole it. They cheated. I really should have been elected, because that is what the New York Times is saying. And it's saying that those who challenged and went up to the Hill and so forth, they were successfully painted as patriotic martyrs. Now, it doesn't end there. The former speaker, Nancy Pelosi, was asked today, in what we call the talking heads, we never call them the thinking heads, and this is an example of that, how you tie one fact to another and come up with what she did. Asked about the pardon, she says, Well, Mr. Trump said he's going to examine... I'm sorry to be affecting her voice because I don't know her voice, and I'm not a good impressionist. But I can say the content of what she said. And the content was, well, he said he's going to look at each case individually. And, perhaps those who trespass, those people, maybe they should be treated differently. Now consider, these people were prosecuted. They were tried if they didn't plead guilty. So they were tried before a jury of their peers in Washington. And then they were sentenced based on either the trial conviction or the plea in which they conceded their guilt. And then they were sentenced by a judge. And Trump, who has the conflict as large as all outdoors, she's comfortable, Speaker Pelosi, is comfortable with Trump pardoning these people? Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Well, America's in a tough place. We have no fighters, even those who wear the sweatshirt that says they're for democracy and equal justice, and if they don't fight, they'll lose the republic. They say all these things, but when push comes to shove, where are they? They're hiding in the back benches. And on some human level, and I assume we're talking about humanity, especially when we talk about Democrats. Her husband could have been killed. Her husband was assaulted and beaten. Why? Because of her role in public life to do the right thing, including to seek the impeachment of Trump. What happened to her? Is this what public life has become? That people are so coerced and so afraid of either them or their husband or loved one being hurt that they say these ridiculous things. I don't know. We need more courage because right now we're in retreat. We're in retreat. We look for ways to say Trump is a good guy. And the judge is going to sentence him. I agree with the majority of people. What the hell kind of a sentence is it to say, you did all this shit and I'm not going to do a thing to you? What message does that send to America? What message do pardons send to America? It's, well, it is what it is, and it leaves it to us to continue to fight and to resist what's going on. But a lot of it is clumsy thinking or no thinking at all. If you listen to them speak on the weekend, and especially on Non-Thinking Talking Heads Day, Sunday today, you see them talk about, well, again, this is the New York Times. I didn't need coffee today, just read the New York Times. They describe the serviceman, for the vet who rode the Tesla Cyber truck to Las Vegas, parked it in front of Trump hotel, and they describe his perplexing hidden evolution. Stop the music. If we're always going to talk about the wrong thing, we're never going to solve it. Why isn't it possible? Not that I would do it, not that I sanctify it or approve it, but if he believes that what we're doing in the Middle East, helping Israel, helping Zelensky, if he believes those things, and he finds that there's no one listening, and he sees that Trump is not going to help Ukraine and is going to further uphold efforts that are in violation of crimes, war crimes, well, this frustration is a product of no leadership, no clear law, no strength in terms of exercising our participation in those events abroad, so the war comes here. Okay, and the war is here, then we should talk about, should we be doing those things and how? How should we handle the war crimes? How should we handle the talks to cease fire? How do we handle these things? and we should be talking about them publicly, because unless we give the release of energy to those so frustrated that they would blow themselves up in a truck, we're failing to govern. We're failing to be that shining building on a hill, all that bullshit. You know, the language of politicians, if they in fact did 50% of what they said, we'd be in a much better place in every way. And it makes it even more miraculous. The Tomiko Ituka in Japan died 116 years old. And in terms of diet, well, she hiked her, I think until she was 100. And her diet was bananas and a drink, cow piss, I think. That sounded wrong. Cow piss. C-A-L-P. I may have that wrong, I'm sorry, but it's a dairy drink. And I'm sure the way she's able to live is not dependent on those two things alone. And on top of it, it makes you think maybe she lives longer because her government actually corresponds to what she's thinking and doing, or she ignores them entirely. In the category of the clowns in the clown car, Trump, we have Giuliani is just about to tip over into contempt and go to jail for failure to pay off the two ladies that he defamed and ridiculed and lost the trial over, and has now been trying to hide things, and it's pretty embarrassing. And is this what we've become? That we have the kind of coverage that you get from National Enquirer. The sentences are longer, the stories are longer, but then the words, they're there. And they're misrepresenting what we can see with our own eyes and hear and feel and know. You also have to say to yourself, as this felon, abuser of women, cheating businessman assumes office, a Republican is interviewed on the Talking No Thinking Heads Day and says, we got to support Trump. That's what the people voted for. And he says, of course there will be spending cuts. Oh yeah, of course there will be. You know, you have a pool of funds that is supposed to be a hybrid to bring us all to the table of community, of a commonwealth. But the path of insurrection is to restore to office a person who got there according to the times, because perhaps with the help of the times, they published enough that people thought, yeah, maybe there's something there. And the principal vote that supported Trump is the one that means I don't have to contribute as much taxes. I'm going to get business. I'm going to get these things. So when I was younger, they talked about elections with a chicken in every pot. People did not get a chicken in every pot. And these people are not going to get $1 in every bank account as a result of this guy. The party of insurrectionists, in its violence, that should have been the end of the story. But in America with a K, not so. So we have to work on that. So sorry for my energy. Maybe it's to help me deal with the cold. And I don't know if I'll be slushing through the snow tomorrow. But otherwise, if I can, I'll be talking to you. And I say goodbye to you from our Cathedral of Trees. Bye-bye.